Welcome to The Explainer. In this analysis, we're diving into some source materials that make a pretty staggering claim that everything we've been taught about our planet being a spinning globe is actually part of an elaborate, centuries-old deception. So, right out of the gate, the central accusation is that the name of the world's leading space agency is basically a confession, hidden in plain sight. And you can see the imagery here is powerful. A serpent's tongue flicking at the NASA logo, immediately framing the organization as a deceiver. And where does this claim come from? Well, the sources say they found proof in etymology. They point to this Hebrew word, nasha, which means to deceive, and they argue that this is the real root of NASA's name. It's presented as Exhibit A, in a case that this deception isn't just intentional, but it's openly declared if you just know where to look. Okay, so after setting up this core idea of a deliberate deception, the documents then build a case against the heliocentric model. And they do it based on what they argue is just simple, direct observation, an appeal to what we can all supposedly see and feel for ourselves. So, the first piece of proof they offer is the horizon. The text asserts that it doesn't matter where you are, at sea level, on top of Mount Everest, or even over 20 miles up in a high-altitude balloon, the horizon always appears perfectly flat. And this quote, this really reveals a core strategy in the argument. It creates this really clear divide between two sources of truth. On one side, you've got your own personal, verifiable observation, and on the other, you have the official images from space agencies, which are just dismissed as fake CGI photos. All right, the next line of argument focuses on the behavior of water. The source uses this really fundamental principle of physics, that water always finds its level, as the next piece of evidence against the globe. So the argument here is that this is just simple physics. The existence of these huge level oceans is presented as direct proof that the Earth is a plane. According to this view, water could never conform to the outside of a spinning ball. It would always maintain a perfectly flat surface. The documents also question the whole idea of a spinning, orbiting planet by appealing to our common sense. They highlight these immense, compounded speeds that modern astronomy claims we're traveling at, spinning on an axis, orbiting the sun, spiraling with the galaxy, and they just label these speeds as, well, ridiculous, simply unbelievable. Now, from physical observation, the argument shifts into something a bit more esoteric. The material claims this so-called deception isn't just scientific, but that it's also encoded with very specific, very intentional numerology. The source presents this long list of supposed coincidences, all involving the number 666. From Earth's axial tilt to astronaut mission durations, the document argues that this pattern is just too consistent to be random chance, that it must be some kind of hidden signature. And this really brings us to the core of the whole thing, the motive. I mean, why would anyone construct a deception of this magnitude? Well, the answer it provides isn't scientific, it's spiritual. The answer, according to the source, is metaphysical. It's presented as a war against God and the biblical description of creation. The text cites scripture, like this passage from Psalms, to argue that the Bible describes a fixed, unmovable earth, a truth that this deception is supposedly designed to undermine. And here, the alleged motive is laid bare. The text argues that the globe model's main purpose is to diminish humanity's special place in creation. By making Earth just another planet, humanity becomes a cosmic accident, and faith in a creator becomes, as the source puts it, highly implausible. So, who's supposedly behind this? The documents identify secretive groups, like the Freemasons, as the architects of this centuries-long conspiracy. They're accused of working behind the scenes to engineer this whole planetary revolution and to undermine faith. So ultimately, this isn't presented as a debate about astronomy, but as a spiritual battle. The source claims that by removing God from the center of creation, the conspirators' true goal is to install a world based on pure materialism, where selfishness and consumerism are all that really matters. So after laying out the what and the why of this alleged deception, the source material concludes by framing this entire conflict as a direct, personal choice for you, the reader. The source is directly challenging you. It frames the whole debate as a conflict between established scientific authority, what it calls the gospel of modern astronomy, and an individual's own senses and intuition. It's asking, who are you going to believe? And it really boils down to this stark comparison, doesn't it? What you feel and see every day, an Earth that feels stationary, a horizon that looks flat, a sun that moves across the sky, versus what you are told is true, which seems to contradict all of your direct experiences. In the end, the source material doesn't give you a final answer. Instead, it leaves its audience with this really provocative question. It forces a reflection on the very nature of knowledge and belief, and asks all of us to consider who or what we really choose to trust.